This is the most annoyingly catchy theme song to ever come to fruition. By the way, I'm not going to sing the theme song in every single episode, so you lucked out there, Squarepants. Why would SpongeBob ever leave his house without his pants on? It makes for a funny opening shot, sure, but don't you think with pants in his name, he'd remember to wear them? Also, a human hand in an animated cartoon in the first 13 seconds. And also, that is not how pants work. This show established, at least in a later episode, that SpongeBob is unable to drive, so why is he suddenly able to for the opening theme song? Why does SpongeBob's pants suddenly fall off? If my memory is correct, they don't fall off in any other episode like that. This. Realistic undersea life is the first thing we see in a cartoon.
The sea.
Narration.
Here we see Bikini Bottom, teeming with life.
He says teeming with life, but I can't see a single fish. What are those poles behind Squidward's house, and why don't they appear in any other episode?
Home of one of my favorite creatures, Spongebob Squarepants.
Why would you have a favorite character? And more importantly, why would it be SpongeBob?
Yes, of course he lives in a pineapple, you silly.
Says the guy narrating for a show about a talking sponge. Also, I'm just realizing, why is this narrator French? Sure, it makes for funny transitions in later episodes, but this is a pilot. This episode doesn't have any transitions, and even if it did, it still doesn't explain why this guy's French. That is not how clocks work. By that count, SpongeBob won't be waking up for at least 7 more minutes. Why are we seeing SpongeBob's room at this angle? It isn't this way in any other episode. It takes SpongeBob loud as a rock concert alarm clock 4 horns to wake him up, when at the same time, I can wake up from just 1 beat from this tiny thing. Why is SpongeBob's first item on his agenda to climb the ladder next to his bed? All he does is use it to jump into the next room, but doing that is harder than just walking into the next room anyway. I think something took Gary's soul, SpongeBob. I mean, look at that lack of pupils. That is not how underpants work. Also, why is he going to get rid of his underpants if he's jumping into his pants anyway? Wouldn't you want to keep those on? Also, the second thing that SpongeBob says ever is for Gary to look at him because he's naked.
I'm naked!
Parents, shield your children's eyes now. Wait, does SpongeBob just set this little pants net up every night before bed? That just seems inefficient. It'd be much simpler just to grab them out of the drawer and put them on. Where did those sleeves come from? And this is the last we will see of Gary for the rest of the episode. Why does SpongeBob have all the rest of this equipment if he never uses it? At least to our knowledge. As far as I know, that is not how eyes work when working out. And I would know. I hate working out. What was the point of taking those steps after you already appeared to reach the hardest point by lifting it? That just seems like a waste of time when you should be hurrying to get to work. Also, this music paints this as something that SpongeBob doesn't do every day.
I'm ready!
And so, a meme was born in the first episode. Does Patrick always have to stick himself to the bottom of his rock to exit his house? Whenever we see him leaving his house to talk to SpongeBob, he almost always attaches himself to his rock. That just seems inefficient. He should really invest in some stairs.
Go, SpongeBob!
Also, after sticking long enough while gravity was completely against him, only now while gravity is only partially against him does Patrick fall. Friction probably would have made him slide down the rock. We see in the shot of Patrick opening his rock that he has some kind of furniture in that hole of his, so that means Patrick crushed his TV and possibly recliner from falling like this. What's worse is that it's a running gag, so Patrick has to replace his TV almost every episode.
There it is. The finest eating establishment ever established for eating.
That was a place with the word Krusty, being misspelled by the way, so that's 2 cents for both Krusty and Crab, the finest eating establishment in Bikini Bottom. We see in later episodes that there are other restaurants, so why is that the case for you, SpongeBob?
I'm gonna go in there, march straight to the manager, look him straight in the eye, lay it on the line!
That is what you do if you don't want to get the job. Take notes, kiddies, it's gonna be on the exam! Did Patrick somehow recover from his possible concussion fast enough to follow SpongeBob here? If so, why? Don't they cut this moment with comedy? Is he the comic relief? Also, did Patrick run here? We know that SpongeBob ran here, so did Patrick do so to keep up with him? I don't think he would do that. Also, how did SpongeBob not notice Patrick until they're 2 inches away from each other?
I'm not good enough!
I'm not good enough even though I totally am cliché.
Whose first words were, "May I take your order?"
That is not possible for a baby.
Who made a spatula out of toothpicks and woodshop?
I can see that being possible, but how old were you to be making things out of toothpicks and woodshop? If it was woodshop, I'd expect at least high school, but then you'd be using real wood. I would know. I made a ballista out of wood freshman year. Why does Patrick look like he's trying to push out a really large fart while trying to come up with something that SpongeBob did/is?
Who's a big yellow cube with holes?
SpongeBob is not a cube. If my 2nd grade geometry has taught me anything, he is a rectangular prism. Those are the only 2 things making SpongeBob qualified to be a fry cook? Did he even attend a cooking class in his life? I say that deserves 2 cents because SpongeBob ends up being the best fry cook in town.
Who's ready?
Patrick does the splits, despite being the least athletic person in this show. And so, Squidward was forever made the butt monkey of SpongeBob. Also, why was Squidward there before SpongeBob? We know that he absolutely hates working there, so why is he there before a possible future employee? There have also been multiple episodes where Squidward is late and totally fine with it, so why is he early now? And cleaning windows away from the register no less. What if a customer walks in right now? Am I really going into this much detail about one scene from the show about a talking sponge? Yes. Also, with the Help Wanted sign up, that means there's no fry cook at the moment. So in that case, who runs the grill when people come in asking for Krabby Patties? Is it Mr. Krabs? We all know how badly that ends up going in later episode. So is it Squidward? We know he can cook, but does that mean he has 2 jobs?
Oh, SpongeBob, what could he possibly want?
Well, Squidward, you see, you work at a fast food restaurant with a Help Wanted poster in the front window, meaning he either wants a burger or he wants a job. You think that's worth 2 sins? I think so.
Go, Self!
SpongeBob is a narcissist.
Go, SpongeBob! Go, Self! Ah!
How does Squidward not know that Mr. Krabs was hiring? Wouldn't he realize that there's no fry cook behind his workstation?
I've been training my whole life for the day I could join the Krusty crew.
Worst mistake of your life, SpongeBob. SpongeBob's expression changes in a single frame. Physics? What's a physics? SpongeBob temporarily turns into Rubber Bob. All of that bouncing didn't knock over a single table or chair.
So, when do I start?
SpongeBob asked when he starts, when he hasn't even handed Mr. Krabs his resume, application, or had an interview.
Well, lad, it looks like you don't even have your sea legs.
Mr. Krabs actually uses the right terminology for sea legs in this case, which is the inability to stay balanced on a moving ship. I'm actually going to remove a sin for the creator's efforts to keep Mr. Krabs somewhat acquainted with ocean living since he was in the Navy.
Mr. Krabs, please.
How does SpongeBob know Mr. Krabs' name? Have they met before this moment? If so, then why does SpongeBob say while motivating himself?
March straight to the manager!
That would indicate that he doesn't know Mr. Krabs' name.
No.
Squidward is SpongeBob.
Well, lad, we'll give you a test, and if you pass, you'll be on the Krusty crew.
I don't have a real job yet, but I know that that is not how jobs work. And so should SpongeBob. SpongeBob pulls a pencil and notebook out of thin air. Why does Mr. Krabs give SpongeBob a uniform? You never get the uniform until after you get the job. And Mr. Krabs was just expecting SpongeBob to take so long finding something that doesn't exist, to his knowledge, that he won't return. That means the uniform won't be returned and he just wasted a perfectly good uniform. The cheapest guy in animation history did that. Let that sink in while I do this.
And don't come back till you get one.
And find this thing that I don't think exists, and don't come back until you do cliché. SpongeBob pulls a mirror out of thin air. That is not Squidward's laugh. Why is Mr. Krabs closing his eye while laughing this one time and never again? They don't see the buses parked outside the restaurant through the clear glass windows?
Do you smell it? That smell. A kind of smelly smell. A smelly smell that smells. Smelly. Anchovies.
Sin removed. That is too funny not to. Why are anchovies the only fish to not speak English? Where are Mr. Krabs and Squidward hiding? That boat is only so big. Why is the register off to the left instead of directly in front like it was in Mr. Krabs' reveal in every other episode? All these anchovies, practically screaming meat, are able to hear Squidward and actually calm down. 2 sins. Why is Squidward suddenly off to the side instead of directly centered with the boat? And now the register is back to normal. Why is there a random anchovy flying off to the left every half a second?
Bargain Mart, meeting all your spatula needs.
Why would Bargain Mart be the place for all your spatula needs? It's literally this world version of Walmart. Why and how is the Krusty Krab bouncing? Am I questioning these things in a cartoon about a talking kitchen utensil? You bet I am! There were not that many anchovies when they first burst in. Where does Squidward's hack go? It comes back at the end of the attack, but we never see him lose or find it. Did it get consumed by the horde of anchovies and Mr. Krabs actually gave him a new one?
Button down the hatches, Mr. Squidward! We're taking on water, Mr. Squidward! I want my mommy, Mr. Squidward!
Removing a sin. That is freaking hilarious. In the world of SpongeBob, a bunch of anchovies equals tidal waves. Imagine what would happen if these same physics took place in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Squidward is shaking with his left hand. I know it's necessary for the setup, but it's so improper that I'm going to sin it because I learned better. Mr. Krabs tried to end his torment early for Squidward by choking him to death.
Permission to come aboard, Captain!
That thing that shouldn't exist but does because plot cliché. Also, save the last moment cliché. This song is amazing. Another sin removed. SpongeBob knows where everything is in the kitchen despite never seeing it. I don't think you use a spatula to cut fruits and veggies. I'm no chef, but I'm pretty sure you need a knife to cut those. SpongeBob has now contaminated all of the food by stepping on it in his shoes that he wore to his supermarket. So, that's 1 sin for the cooked patties, plus another one for how many he has on the grill, 1 sin for the tomatoes, 1 sin for the lettuce, 1 sin for the onions, and 1 sin for the uncooked patties. Also, shouldn't you be making the patties right now? You really need to save your boss. SpongeBob puts a different condiment on every bun. That's just gonna make things less efficient. SpongeBob has time to dance between all of this. He also has enough time to make a happy face on every single patty he makes. Do those patties even have all the ingredients? From what we see, it's a tiny bit of ketchup and mustard, a patty, lettuce, and 2 buns. Where's the tomatoes, onions, and mayo you were so concerned with showing us? Those bottom buns and patties drop out of nowhere. Also, why do none of these patties have cheese? That's the only way to have a burger, with cheese. Well, I guess the ocean of anchovies decided to calm down because plot convenience. Where are all those patties landing? We can clearly see that all the anchovies on screen have full mouths. So who are they going to? Child anchovies? Why not just hit them all at once? You don't need to set up your shot every time. It's not golf. And so this one anchovy is left behind, with no way of getting home. SpongeBob blowing on his spatula sounds like a bottle. I don't think those anchovies actually paid for any of those patties, yet Mr. Krabs has a big bag inside a wheelbarrow full of money.
Ever seen Mr. Squarepants?
Mr. Krabs calls SpongeBob Mr. Squarepants this time, and refers to him as SpongeBob in every subsequent episode. Mr. Krabs just have that on hand in case SpongeBob actually succeeded? If so, then when would he have made it? Also, we never see that name tag again until an episode where SpongeBob loses it. That bag is way bigger than it was in the background.
I'll be in my quarters, counting out the booty.
So that is not the way to Mr. Krabs' office. That is the way to the bathroom. Is he going to flush his success down the toilet? After being surprised at SpongeBob's spatula, Patrick returns to his position before it happened and stays frozen that way until he's hit with a bunch of Krabby Patties. Speaking of which, how did those patties even hit Patrick? Is the gravity on high this turn? I don't remember getting hit last time. SpongeBob will not be a good employee if this is how you react to somebody ordering a Krabby Patty. Also, Patrick doesn't have to pay for all that, right?